Coming this morning at our agenda meeting to get started off. It's a little bit after 8, so we'd like to come to order and thank everyone for coming. Before you, we have an agenda packet that was sent out Thursday, and I hope you've all had time to read through it. I'm sure you have. The invocation this morning will be Vice Chairman Ray Mayo. I understand we have a special guest this morning.
Yes, I have Glenn Phillips, the pastor from First Baptist, will be here this morning to give our invocation.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mayo. Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Cromartie. Conflict of interest statement. Okay. Approval of the minutes, discussion, adjustment of agenda. The reports, special recognition, Eastern Carolina Council presentation to Steve Keene. Is someone from the Eastern Carolina Council coming for that?
Yes, sir.
Board of Commissioners committee reports. Have those. Unfinished business, Wayne County Facilities Committee recommendation for Steele Memorial Library. Commissioner Mayo.
Yes, sir. We do have a recommendation for the Commission Board.
Okay.
As a result of the 7 a.m. meeting this morning of the Facilities Committee.
All right. Payroll report. That is in reference to the information we received from Nunn and Brashear 2 weeks ago. We'll be moving through that. Will someone from Nunn and Brashear be here for that? Dana, our Finance Director. Yes, just in case there's some questions, have them come. Just a representative would be fine. Anything under unfinished business that we need to walk on this morning? Mr. Smith, is there anything that you want to,
No,
under unfinished business?
There was a number 64 budget amendment that we added to the budget amendments. Yeah, under new business, there were a couple of items.
Okay. Any commissioners have anything under unfinished business they wish to add on? Okay. New business. North Carolina Department of Transportation presentation. Who will be our speaker for that this morning?
Chris Pendergraft, and I don't know if you'll have any other staff with him or not.
Budget amendments. Ms. Holt, she just left to make a phone call, but
And she also has an additional number 64. You'll need to add that one, and she'll be bringing those to you. So just make sure you see that in front of you.
okay.
So I'll put that behind page 32.
All right. Requested to name walking park at the Wayne County Senior Center.
Yes.
Aaron McCullough.
Aaron from the senior, Aaron McCullough will be here. Yeah, may have special guests also.
All right. Honeybee Day in Wayne County proclamation.
Jessica Strickland, Cooperative Extension.
Tax refund. Mr. Ward will do that.
Yeah, David Ward will be handling that.
Agreement for protection, development, and improvement of forest land in Wayne County.
I'll take care of that.
Purple Heart resolution.
I'll take care of that, and that'll be 2 motions to be handled in that, because we also have to support the individual proclamations that will be given to the Purple Heart recipients to tonight's meeting.
All right. Okay. What time is that banquet tonight?
Starts at 7:10.
Okay.
Did you, also, Mr. Pate, if I can, did you want to mention maybe during that time that we're going to do on the 29th, a planning session?
I can.
And even though it's going to be open, it's really going to be by invitation, a planning session for veterans, but you just might want to mention that day.
Limited Professional Services Supplemental Agreement between Wayne County and Cambridge Systematics.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
And that's Cambridge Systematics. Commissioner Daughtery heads up our Transportation Committee's the chair, and also on the 70 Corridor Commission. So if there's anything you'd like to add in, chime in on that. Resolution supporting regional interstate connectivity in eastern North Carolina. Mr. Goddard, if you want to take care of that.
I will. I'm wondering whether or not, Connie, could you possibly bring us a map or something in regards to that Quad East so that we can present that, or if you can put it on here in some way, so we can get a little bit of a visual understanding of what Quad East is and that.
Scan it in and put it up.
Resolution.
We can do that. We'll take care of it.
And there was a 10, but I see this back on the agenda this morning. Was there an addition?
Yes.
Fire districts.
Fire District Commissioners for consideration. You have a list.
Okay, can we add that as number 10 and put Fire District Commissioners? Who will be handling that?
Brian Taylor.
Brian Taylor?
Yes.
Fire Marshal? Okay. You got a busy morning. Okay.
My understanding here, Mr. Chairman, that the board approves the appointment of fire commission. Are these that are recommended, is that?
Mr. Barker?
Yes, that is correct. These are recommended generally by the fire departments.
And is that a one-year term, 4-year term?
2-year.
2-year term.
And my understanding is that they have to live in the fire district. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But these are the recommendations from these different fire departments.
If you would, Mr. Smith, if you'd asked Mr. Taylor to come up and address this, please.
Let's kind of review it.
Yes, sir.
Because they also kind of audit it and make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be.
Probably be doing the same thing at our 9 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor,
That's fine.
just to help.
Every 2 years, Marcia sends us the list of the current ones because, as time goes on, if people move out of the district or commissioners pass away or something of that nature, they always submit names to carry out that term. But every 2 years, we go through the process of looking at each one of them, verifying with the fire department that the names and addresses we got are correct, and then we submit it to the commissioners for approval. I have gone through and verified the best of my ability each one of these stay within that district. The general statute states they have to be a qualified voter of that district. Is actually the way it says, a qualified voter of the district, which, to be a voter of the district, you got to stay within that district. So that's kind of what the general statute states. And then we just submit these for approval by the county commission.
Question, Mr.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayo.
Just as a matter of information, I've also talked to Commissioner Aycock since he's not here today, and I know that you and he have got together.
That's correct.
And Commissioner Aycock knows, he's gone over this list and told me he's gone over it with you, and that he is in support of what's been presented to the board today. I understand that there's maybe one or two that's not within, they don't live within the district. We will only be voting on the ones that are qualified, that live in the district. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you look on page 2 of this, we have actually, we have one department, Pinewood. They're currently trying to find some folks within their district. Their district's so small, and a lot of their district's just rural area where there's no houses or anything like that. So they're having a little trouble finding some folks there. Two of the ones that they had previously on the list had passed away, and one of them actually stays in the city, so they got to find three additional ones, so we're going to be in the process of helping them find somebody to fill that and then present that back to the board, probably the first meeting in September. Last week, we realized there was one in the Rosewood district that did not stay in the district anymore. I've been in contact with that chief on 3 occasions since last week, and they were hoping to have me somebody by yesterday. I have yet to hear from them, so as soon as they submit another name for that, we'll bring that probably at the same meeting.
So will we be voting on everyone on this list except those 2, which will be brought at a later date?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And tell me how that works out with contracts with the county and the fire departments, and how important it is, I guess, to coordinate that contract signing with these trustees or these board members.
Okay.
And what date are we looking at, a timeline?
Okay, in order, with the way the current contracts are written, it requires the signature of all of the chairman, I think it's just the chairman of Mr. Bowen, and the chairman of this commission, whoever they pick as to be their chairman for the fire commission for these 3 representatives. And until they're approved, because the terms have expired, until they're approved, we can't send the contracts out. So that's why it's important for us to go ahead and get these done so we can get the contracts out to the fire departments and get them back. The current contracts expire October 31st at midnight. And this will give us basically 2.5 months to get the contracts in, out, and back in. History speaking, it takes a little while to get them back in from the fire department. So that's why we like that leadway, so we make sure that there's no one that goes beyond the October 31st date, because if they do that, then they're in violation with rules and regulations from the state fire marshal's office. So we don't want to do that. So.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, just add to the agenda then, number 10, and this report, and just come back and give us a full report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. 10 o'clock. Was there any other items of new business that any commissioner wants to add? 10 o'clock, public comments. Then the county manager's report. Do we have a closed session today?
Yes, sir.
Can we do that before 9?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay, closed session will be for what purpose?
To discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries in Wayne County.
Board of Commissioners comments. Of course, we have the Board of Commissioners information. Mr. Price is going to get that information for Mr. Daugherty. Anything else needed from staff at the Commissioners? Do y'all need anything from staff before? Yes. All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And repeat that again, Mr. Parker?
To discuss the expansion or location of industries or businesses in Wayne County.
Okay. Motion's on the floor going to closed session. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming this morning. We have some special guests. I've seen some new faces in this morning, so looking forward to this morning's meeting, and we as commissioners are excited about this day and taking care of county business in this manner. So we really appreciate you coming this morning. We'll start off this morning with our invocation. Commissioner Mayo.
This morning, Mr. Chairman, it's a pleasure for me to introduce my pastor, the pastor of First Baptist Church here in Goldsboro, which is right behind us on John Street. The oldest congregation in Goldsboro. If you notice, I said the oldest congregation, not the oldest pastor. So at this time, I have a couple of comments before you come, but I do want to introduce Pastor Glenn Phillips. But first of all, I want to just have a comment I want to share with you, in my life experience, a simple verse in the Bible that means a lot to me. It is my number one verse in the Bible as far as I am concerned. It's a simple verse. It says, Romans 3:23 says, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Now what that means is that if you notice the word all, it doesn't say Commissioner King or Commissioner Daugherty. It doesn't name us. It says all. That includes all of us, are sinners. So we need to remember that as we march through this journey of life, that no matter who we are, we're all sinners. I think if we can just realize that it makes going forward so much better to realize and not be a judge on anyone, because God demands this, and He tells us that we all are sinners. Pastor Phillips, would you come lead us in our invocation?
As I pray to my God today, I encourage all of you in the great spirit of this country of ours to pray to your God today. Let us pray together. Almighty and creating God, I come before you today not asking for blessing, but for presence and for forgiveness. For while we are unworthy, you alone are worthy. While we have had our breakfast and read our papers and put on our clothes and driven here today, there are those in our community who cannot read, who have no access to newspapers or books, who are hungry and alone. We have established earthly kingdoms, and you call us to live in your kingdom. You call us to follow, and we choose to lead. You teach us to lose our life for your sake. Instead, we want to gain the whole world, regardless of our true intentions. You've taught us that to be great is to be the servant of all, and yet we choose to want to be great in the eyes of the world. We forget that you love all kinds of people all over our community, and we choose to love and care for only those who look like us, think like us, agree with us. You've taught us to care for the least of these, to care for everyone. And we choose to care for those of our own political persuasion and those who have our own political agendas and ideologies. You call us to be about the business of running our world with understanding, love, and compassion, living a life of mercy. And we strut around as if we're in control, as if we have all the answers. We sacrifice our integrity, our relationship with you for 30 pieces of silver in our decision making, and we see ourselves as superior. And yet in the blink of an eye, we will stand before you in eternity and see ourselves as you see us, sinners in need of grace. No, God, I ask not for blessing today. I ask you to forgive us and move us to true leadership, where you have taught us to love you with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. Mostly, God, may we find your agenda for our lives today and make it our own. God, I do ask for blessing. I ask for your greatest blessing, that of your forgiveness. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Phillips. Have a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Cromartie.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The general statutes in North Carolina mandates that the chairman inquire as to whether any member knows of any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to matters before the commission this morning. If any member knows of a conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict, please state so at this time. Thank you. We're now discussing the adjustments of the agenda. Mr. Smith, is there any adjustments or the agenda this morning, discussion for that?
Yes, sir. We've already had the closed session, so you can take that off of the agenda this time. But we also, in the briefing this morning, you did add number 10, the Fire District Commissioner discussion, and Brian Taylor will be bringing that to you. And also during budget amendments under new business number 2, there was new budget amendment number 64, I believe. And so that was, social services will be, service on aging, that has already been added. So those are the only changes at this time. Then also, we're going back to the minutes to get those minutes.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Smith. We go into reports.
No,
The approval of minutes, I apologize. The approval of the minutes
So
on
moved, Mr.
July the
Chairman.
2nd and July the 16th. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Motion's on the floor to approve the minutes of July 2nd, July the 16th. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous. Special reports, or reports this morning, special recognition. Mr. Smith?
We have representatives from Eastern Carolina Council presentation this morning. So I know Judy Hills and Nick Gardner is here also.
Commissioner from Greene County.
Appreciate having them this
Please.
morning. Come up to the podium, please. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Judy Hills. I'm the Executive Director of the Eastern Carolina Council of Governments. This is our Chairman of our Board of Directors, Mr. Denny Garner, who's also Commissioner with Greene County. We thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. We have a special presentation that Mr. Garner would like to do to Steve Keene as our past president of our organization. So, Mr. Keene, we have a special gift for you.
Gentlemen, as probably most of you know, a couple years ago, well, a little over 2 years ago now, we had to completely reorganize our organization. And from the president right on down to the treasurer, first vice president, second vice president, all of our officers. And as we looked around the room, the executive board, we felt that we needed someone with a strong financial background and somebody that had been a successful businessman, and we needed somebody to really step up to the plate and turn our organization around, get it back on the right track. And we couldn't think of anybody better than Steve Keene. And I'm glad to say that because of the wisdom of our board, we do have the Council of Government back on track. We are moving forward, and that's all under the leadership of your chairman, Steve Keene. And since he stepped up to bat and accepted that position, we thought that it was only appropriate. Our executive director got very creative. And instead of presenting a plaque, since Steve stepped up to bat, we want to present you, Chairman Keene, with this baseball bat. Steve Keene, President of Eastern Carolina Council 2011 to 2013. And we want to thank you for your leadership on behalf of the COG, if I may.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Danny. Thank
And
you
we
so
thought
much.
the bat could have multiple purposes, Steve, you know.
Well, I don't know if they want me to have it up here right now or not.
I too would like to add my thanks for your support for all this time. Thank you.
Judy, thank you so much. And Danny, if you would, I would just want to, if you would stand back up, because we're being filmed here. And the mission statement of the Eastern Carolina Council is to improve the region's quality of life by promoting and providing human, planning, and economic development service to local governments and area residents by leveraging resources and collaborating regionally. When I saw that mission statement back in '08 and took Efton Sager's place and was appointed by the previous board to serve, I had no idea what I was getting into. And as I witnessed the leadership and witnessed the lack of leadership. I found that hard work, staying focused, not getting distracted on what that mission statement meant was first and foremost. And in that, I have discovered that Judy Hills is the right person for this job as director. I have witnessed Tamika Williams as a finance director, as someone that's second to none as far as finance. I've recognized the importance of area on aging through Tanya Cedar's leadership in the organization. As you all know, this is a 9-county quasi-government organization. It's a system that breathes only because of its employees, because of the staff. Mount Olive yesterday, I ran into Mrs. Pridgeon, and she was there at the Mount Olive Rehab Center. Of course, under the area on aging, there's Sheila Lewis, who is in charge of the ombudsman, who's an advocate for those that are in the nursing homes. And as Ms. Pridgeon and Julia Harden, I've had the pleasure with working with her. Misty Hill and Monica Holloway and David Risotto, I've had the privilege of working with those. But in transportation, I've always also had the pleasure of working with Alex Rickard, who has now gone on to the MPO in Raleigh, in Wake County. But now we have Patrick Flanagan, which our chairman of transportation works with very closely. Joe Daughtery works closely with Patrick Flanagan and Rob Will. So this organization is a huge asset and makes a tremendous impact in eastern North Carolina. I'm just so proud that Denny has followed in, and from Greene County, the commissioner for so many years there, and taken this on and to lead us forward with this. So thank you so much. I'll come down and shake your hand. I want to make sure that was safe.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. God bless. Okay, thank you. Keep doing a good job.
Hey, you need to be holding the bat, Chairman. Come on, sir. There you go.
Thank you.
Whoever did the next, the goal next. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Please be careful going back to Newbern. Thank you. Board of Commissioners Committee reports. Mr. Cromartie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have not met with face-to-face with any of the committees that I have been assigned to, but I have had the great pleasure of interacting with the Library Committee, and of whom I see quite a few of our members out here this morning, and I'm glad to see them again after having had very meaningful and fruitful discussions with them over the last couple of weeks. Also, this was not considered to be a committee of mine, but as all Wayne County citizens are always concerned, our board had a great opportunity to meet with the Wayne County Public School Board last week, and I think the discussions and the meetings will lead to very fruitful outcomes in the future. So that's sort of where I've been this past couple of weeks. Thank you.
Mr. Bell.
I'm going to have to say ditto to what Mr. Cromartie said. It seemed like he always get to go first, and he takes what I'm. Sorry. But I don't have any report today.
Mr. Daughtery.
Today I want to talk about transportation and those things that are starting to heat up here in Wayne County and in our region. One of the important things about building a highway is you have to have an economic study. And in addition to that, you have to have a feasibility study. The highways that we are looking to bring here to Wayne County includes the extension of 795 down to I-40. That would probably be one of the most important things that I believe that we could do to bring industry and jobs and economic development here to our county. You know, I want you to look around in eastern North Carolina and realize that in eastern North Carolina, we have not grown as the rest of the state has done in that we do not have interstate highways. Think about it for a moment. With interstate highways comes the commerce and the jobs and the economic vitality. So not only here in Wayne County, but in our region, we're working together to bring interstate highways here to our region. We met recently down in Morehead City to announce the impact study to be done for the Highway 70 corridor. Now that's important because we need to have a guide in regards to the completion of those improvements along Highway 70 as to what it will bring economically to our region, how will it help us, and in the alternative, to let us know that if we do not do those improvements, what will happen in our region. So we're going to be able to see as a result of that economic impact study, which should be out by the end of the year, to tell us whether or not we're doing the right thing there in regards to bringing about the bypasses and the improvements to Highway 70. Last week, I attended a meeting with the county manager and Senator Lewis Pate and several of our county commissioners, our county planner. We all went to Gardner and attended the kickoff of the feasibility study for the completion of I-795 and I-40. Now that's key. We need to have a feasibility study in regards to whether or not it's feasible to do it. The difficulty has always been from the end of I-795 going forward, going across the Neuse River and the floodplain and the FEMA properties. That has always been the holdup, and we need to find a feasible way of overcoming that obstacle. You know, there's one thing I learned, and that is building a highway is a long, slow process. It doesn't take years, it seems like it takes decades, and we are working hard to try to shorten that time. The good news is the process has begun. Thursday, we will be holding a Wayne County Transportation Committee meeting at Lane Tree. That begins at 11:30. And I look forward to hearing the reports of all of our area towns and cities, the MPO, the RPO, and I think all the activities that have been going on in transportation. Now, on a personal note, I wish to extend an apology to Mr. Smith and my fellow commissioners on my motion at our last meeting. Since that time, I have received additional information that enables me to state that this is not the time for us to make a change in our current management, and that it would be in the best interest of our county that we proceed on with our current management. Sometimes we may have differences and squabbles like families, but we bounce back stronger as we recommit to bringing improvements to Wayne County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Donnery. Mr. Pate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to cover this in my comments, but it kind of falls behind what Commissioner Daugherty was saying about transportation and trying to develop an economic engine in eastern North Carolina. It's very important, and I'm glad that, you know, this group is a proactive group trying to seek that goal and the ends to that. Our latest unemployment rate came out last week, and Wayne County is at 9.2%. That's unacceptable, and it's probably higher than that because of people dropping out of the workforce. So we got to take and be proactive and go different directions to try to bring industry to this county. Anything that we can do, we need to do that to bring jobs to this county, and we need to make investments to do that. Met with the Works Group last week, and this is a group, as you well know, that's the combination of the school system, public schools, community college, local business leaders, and myself, and employment office, and those kind of folks. And still working hard to close those gaps in our workforce. I spoke with Mike Haney the other day, and we were talking about the unemployment rate, and he said, well, there's some jobs out there, but we still don't have the people with the skills to perform at the level that our human resource community is looking for. So we're still working hard on that end. Now, Wayne County has made some big strides with this work, readiness certificates. 20.86% of our workforce has a certificate, which leads the state by far. Well, that's not the only thing that we've got to do. Well, one of the other big things is the lack of soft skills. Can't show up to work on time, can't dress appropriately. So they still have a soft skills program that's taking place over there, and that's to teach those skills. And we moved on to something else that's come out in the grant that we're looking to try to receive to get what we call a certified production technician. Wayne County is a highly have a lot of manufacturing in Wayne County, so when you try to add that credential to the CRC to help people move into employment and fill those skill gaps that I was talking about. So that's important. Okay, I'll move away from that for the moment. I did meet with, went to the tourism board, and we met together. And probably the more important things that came out of that is, we were talking about that multi-sports complex update, which I thought was sort of an expensive kind of proposition. However, it looks like through maybe some partnerships with Seymour Johnson, that may be possible in the future, but we'll just have to see how that works out. But I do think that's a good idea and another way to help bring an economic engine to Wayne County, because those events bring a lot of dollars to different communities that have those. And finally, I met with the Old Waynesboro Commission the other day, and they were going through their process and their agenda. And I did speak to them a little bit about the budget and what the county provided them this year. And it was a little bit less than what they had asked for. However, I told them, I said, what this board is looking at is for groups that can be self-supporting. If you're showing that you are self-supporting and you can go out and raise revenue, then you've got our support. At some point in time, you have to be able to stand on your own. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Daugherty, Commissioner Daugherty covered a lot of some of the meetings that I've been into. My committee is like the Eastern Region and the Wayne County Development Alliance. We meet this week, so I've been sort of attending some of the other meetings that's across the eastern part of North Carolina. I was at the Morehead City Highway 70 corridor meeting, and also at the meeting up in Garner that we had on the scoping. And Commissioner Daugherty is exactly correct. This 795 extension I-40 is a very important for Wayne County and eastern North Carolina. The other thing that I was able to attend on July 29th, the Veterans Outpatient Clinic ribbon cutting for the new Veterans Clinic here in Goldsboro, and I'm not going to steal Commissioner Pate's because he
mentioned, but you go ahead.
Yes, okay, but this is something that was really heartwarming to go to see a facility that our veterans that have been going to Fayetteville and Durham can have the option to stay right here in Goldsboro for our veterans. Our veterans deserve exactly what they're getting now, finally. Our veterans are getting what they deserve. It's coming slowly, but it's happening. And I'm so pleased to have been a part and continue to be a part of the veterans here in Wayne County. So having said that, we also were able to attend an AT&T get-together a week or so ago, where AT&T corporate people presented presentations of checks to the WCDA and the United Way. So there's a lot of things going on even when our committees are not functioning, but the biggest committee, as you know, that I'm a part of is the Facilities Committee. So I'm going to have a part of that coming up on our agenda shortly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Thank you, Commissioners, for your reports. So we'll move on to unfinished business, the Wayne County Facilities Committee recommendation for the Steele Memorial Library. And I'll let Mr. Smith and Mr. Mayo take that.
Yeah, we've had the interviews with, as a staff, with 7 of the design teams, contractors, and architect engineers. We were able to narrow these down, bring Facilities Committee. Those Facility Committee had those, and 7 o'clock this morning, a recommendation was put together, so I would turn it over to Mr. Mayo as chair of that to bring that recommendation forward to the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. As Mr. Smith discussed, we had a 7 o'clock meeting this morning, which was a continuation of our Facilities Committee that was in recess from July 23rd. So at that meeting this morning, and at this time, I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, as chairman of the Facilities Committee, that we are recommending to the Wayne County Commission Board that we accept the design build team of Jackson Builders and Smith Engineering to move forward with the Steele Memorial Library project in Mount Olive. I make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Motion's on the floor to move forward with the building and design for the Steele Memorial Library in Mount Olive by Jackson Builders and Smith Engineering. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayo.
To be transparent and to be have full disclosure on the process, there's three members of the Facilities Committee of Wayne County. It's myself as chairman, Commissioner Steve King, and Commissioner Wayne Aycock. Mr. Aycock could not be with us today in our 7 o'clock meeting. He was not able to vote, but through a process, and I'm going to call on Mr. Parker, our county attorney, will you go through the process of how this took place, that I ended up with a sealed envelope from Mr. Wayne Aycock?
Commissioner Aycock called me last week and said that he would not be here, but he wanted to have his recommendation presented to the board and asked me to deliver it to you and Chairman King this morning, and I did so. He had a letter, and his recommendation was the same that you in your motion.
Okay, and at this time, I want to read, we opened this envelope for the first time at our 7 a.m. meeting this morning, and I want to read this to the board and to the public. Dated August 2nd, 2013, to Ray Mayo, Chairman of the Wayne County Facilities Committee. Dear Commissioner Mayo, I am sorry that I am unable to attend the Facilities Committee meeting on August 6, 2013. I want the committee and the Board of Commissioners to know that I have studied the presentations and proposals of the design build teams for the Steele Memorial Library for Mount Olive and the southern part of Wayne County. It is my opinion that the team of Jackson Builders and Smith Engineering would be the best design team for the facility. Sincerely, George Wayne Aycock, Jr., Wayne County Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, motion is before you.
Any other discussion, Mr. Pate?
I just wanted to thank the Facilities Committee for going through a hard job and making a difficult decision, and thank both staff and council for keeping you on track, because it was a tough job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Mr. Daugherty.
I want to thank the citizens of Mount Olive and the committee that's worked so hard on this project for your patience for us to find a team to build a great library for Mount Olive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Mr. Camardo.
I would just like to thank everyone involved, my fellow county commissioners and all of the library members, the library committee members, and the foundations of the library, and the citizens of Mount Olive, our elected officials in Mount Olive. This has been a long but very fruitful experience, and we look forward to having a great regional library in Mount Olive that will be an invitation to all citizens of Wayne County, but especially that end of Wayne County. Thank you, Mr. Daugherty, for working hard on the roads that will give folk an opportunity to find Mount Olive a lot easier and a lot more fruitful than they have in the past. So just to editorialize just for a minute, Mount Olive is working hard on many aspects. The Mount Olive College is very involved in things that will be very fruitful for Mount Olive. This library provides us with a corner of what is to be a great expansion in Mount Olive. And so just for the folk of Mount Olive, thank you for being here this morning. All of southern Wayne County, all of Wayne County. I expect that the folk in Dudley will feel very invited to come, because I want to throw this piece in. Your departed colleague and my great friend, Mr. J.D. Evans, worked hard for this library, and he kept the light burning, and when it may have been flickering, he would light a match that got it back burning again, and he was very involved in this, and I would not want it lost in all this that we did not pay attention to the fact that he worked hard to do this. So thank you, Mount Olive. Thank you, J.D., all of you all out there.
Thank you, Mr. Cromartie. Thank you, Mr. Cromartie. Mr. Bailey.
I'd just like to say congratulations to the people of Mount Olive. As soon as you get that library built, we're going to annex you into Goldsboro.
Well, the Goldsboro councilman sitting here. Thank you, Mr. Bell. My comments were to finish up with what we had talked about this morning at 7, is how the design build team, which everyone came to the table and presented their qualifications, each one was well qualified. The part that I think left this morning at the 7 o'clock meeting was that whoever the design build team is, and in this case it'd be Jackson Builders, is that we encourage the design build team, as mentioned before the last meeting, is that they do a good partnership with the Mount Olive Town and the library board itself, with Donna Phillips, the director, and her staff, and be sensitive to all that is to come with this design build concept, and to make the Mount Olive Library a diamond in the rough that it was intended to be all along, and not just a library, but a regional learning center. I think a quote from Mr. Jimmy Williams that has worked so hard on that board and still continues to do so, that it be a regional resource center, learning resource center that will benefit just more than the city of Mount Olive, but those all around from Faison to Calypso and all the way up to Dudley, and just all around in that southern part. So I just encourage the design build team, and they're here today. I see them sitting in the audience, is that we work together, get it designed the right way, get it started as soon as possible, and let's see if we can get that for next summer, opened up by next summer. That was sort of the comments that were made this morning. Any other discussions? And I'll call for a vote. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, as discussed this morning in my comments, I want to relay what I said this morning. I want to thank the Facilities Committee, myself and Chairman King and Wayne Aycock, our County Manager Lee Smith and his staff, Ms. Donna Phillips, the Wayne County Library Director, friends of the library, the town of Mount Olive. But last but not least, Mr. Borden Parker, our county attorney, he has kept us on the right track from the legal standpoint and some statutes that we need to follow. I want to thank a lot of other people that we don't even know that have supported this library from the start. I appreciate all the patience that has taken place when you switch from a straight bid to design build. It takes some time to get it done. But in closing, I want to remind all of us is that the work has just begun. We have a lot of work to move forward. We need to forge ahead together in order to make the Steele Memorial Library in Mount Olive a reality. So we are together, and we will get it done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Any other discussions? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you so much for all the work
Mr. Chairman,
you've done. Mr.
just
Smith.
if we could just, I was talking to the attorney, just so folks will understand the next step. Next step will be our staff and team will be meeting with Jackson Builders and Smith Engineering, where we will develop a timeline and a contract, and that contract will then come back to the board for your approval. And because obviously there are negotiations on the budget and things that we now have to work out as part of this design-build process, and we'll be bringing that back to you just as quick as we can. So anyway, just to let you know that's the next step.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
Next item of business, unfinished business, will be payroll reports. As you know, the last meeting, we had a report from Nunn and Bashir. We had reports from Nunn and Bashir on our payroll, and the payroll report indicated overpayments, and it also indicated underpayments. And there was commissioners that expressed to me over the last 2 weeks that basically those that are underpaid, and of course those that are overpaid, what is the process of really concentrating on those certainly who are underpaid? And how are we going to deal with that? So I brought that to the agenda this morning and spoke to council, spoke to the manager, and wanted to bring it before the board and get the pleasure of the board this morning and how you want to move forward with this. So it's time to go ahead and open this body up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Donner.
I'd hope that the first order of business is to make sure that we go through that report, we identify those that were underpaid, and make sure those payments are made promptly. That's just my feeling. I think we need to make sure that our employees were paid correctly, and that we go ahead and address that issue as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Pate?
I agree with Mr. Doherty on that. They need to be paid, and we need to do that first. But we still got the issue of the overpayments, and whether or not, what process we'll take to reclaim those dollars, because they are taxpayers' dollars. And if it's going to cost us more to do it than what we're going to get back, we need to look at that. So we need to know what the cost of recovering those dollars will be before I can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pate.
Mr. King.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I would like for the board to consider to direct our county manager and Nunn Brashear to do a study, a detailed analysis on what are our options, along with Mr. Parker, our county attorney. What are our options in recouping the overpayments, and by whatever means they want to use, whether they want to talk to individual commissioners or what they would like to do, is that we need to come back to this board within no later than 90 days with the different recommendations. What is legal? What can we do? We don't have any idea at this point what we can do legally to recoup the overpayments. We need to know what those steps are. And I would recommend that we direct our county manager to do that study along with his staff and whoever he needs to pull in order to get that done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Donner.
I would hope that we could accomplish that before the 3 months, 90 days. I would anticipate and hope that we could get that done within, 30 to 45 days at the most.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
So that request, I also make a motion that we request that the county manager, the finance officer, the county attorney, and with the assistance of resources needed or required, including other staff, develop recommendations based on the Nunn-Brashear audit payroll report given to the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, July 16, 2013, and that these recommendations must be submitted to the Board of Commissioners no later than September the 17th, 2013. And I make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's on the floor, as read. Does everyone understand the motion? So we do have a date established, September the 17th?
Yes, that's right.
All right, and the way I understand it is the county manager, the finance director, county attorney,
Yes.
and what other staff that deem necessary. I would like to amend that motion that we include 3 commissioners. And those commissioners will be Joe Daughtery, Ray Mayo, Bill Pate, to assist and stand in on your, is that amendment appropriate?
I would not make that amendment if I were you. I think that what I understood the first motion was that anybody could be brought in that was necessary.
I would draw the amendment.
So if folks are needed, we'll call them in.
All right. Want to make sure that commissioners are well represented, are part of the process. Okay. And it's certainly not to break the sunshine law. Just make sure it's just all done right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I would draw the amendment then. Motion's on the floor then. Any discussion?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman. I want everybody to keep in mind that, we're talking about 2012 pay, and you got to consider internal revenue when we start to talk about these things, because you can't go back 2012 and make employees, because there's a conflict there. So just want everybody to be aware of that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Bell, I agree with you, and that's the purpose of this study, is to find out what impact it would have on the overpayments and what we could do. We just needed to do this for the citizens of Wayne County, just to find out what the options are. Doesn't mean that we're going to take action, but we cannot make a decision unless we know what all the ins and outs are, and that's the purpose of this study that's to be done. So I agree with you, Mr. Bell.
Any other discussions? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. New business, the North Carolina Department of Transportation presentation by Mr. Chris Pendergraft. Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir. Ask Mr. Pendergraft to come up, and appreciate his coming this morning.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for
Other
coming.
commissioners. I think included in your packet is an excerpt from our subdivision manual that details my intent for the presentation was to just lay a baseline of understanding for the process of adding subdivision streets, particularly to the state maintenance system, having basically not necessarily private roads, but nobody really named as who maintains that road to get it onto the state system so that NCDOT can start maintaining it. And that process is detailed in our manual through about 19 bullet points. And so my intent today is to summarize that into something a little bit more digestible, to be followed up at a later date with more detail once the commissioners have a chance to get this understanding. So basically with that said, as we go, basically a subdivision street in the modern sense of our the majority of the subdivision streets that are developed now. Our first issue is to make sure that they are built and designed to current NCDOT standards. And so those standards are somewhat changing, but the basic analysis is that when a subdivision is designed or initially conceived, if you will, it goes through Mr. Price's planning office. A set of plans is forwarded to us. We approve those plans, and basically that's all done. The next step is once the subdivision is built, people start to move into it. A petition can be filed with the department. And basically what that petition does is it petitions the Department of Transportation to look at adding that road or roads onto the state system. Once we receive that petition form, we will perform an investigation. Once we do that, in that investigation, we address 3 main points. One being the minimum housing density. Number 2 being any utilities that are located in the right-of-way that need to have agreements with the utility companies, such as, well, it used to be Progress Energy, now I understand it's Duke Energy, telephone, cable, water, sewer, natural gas, any utility that would be within the right-of-way. We have to address those. And then being in an acceptable state of maintenance. It can be anywhere from 2-3 months once the subdivision is built, up to 20 years after the streets are actually built before it meets the minimum housing density. The minimum housing density requirement is actually detailed in in bullet numbers that I gave you, number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 19. So it's covered in lots of different aspects. But the purpose in that basically is that we want to add streets to the state system that serve the public. And so we don't want to add streets to the state system that don't serve any purpose, because a street sitting out there not serving anything is still going to cost money. That street's going to oxidize, it's going to create potholes, it's going to cost us money for a state just in maintenance costs. So we want to make sure that those costs are associated with a benefit to the citizens. And so that is the reason that we have a minimum housing density. But the problem is that minimum housing density creates a time gap between when the streets are built and when we can actually add it. And because of that time gap is where many subdivisions fall into a state of, it's built to DOT standards, but by the time we can add it, because of that minimum housing density, it falls into a state of disrepair. Normally, if it's very quick, the state of maintenance is very acceptable, and we can add that street to the state system. Typically, when we do a ride-through for the subdivision, we just want to make sure that the streets are in an acceptable state of maintenance. Those things are detailed in numbers 11, 12, 13, and 18. So I'll be glad to follow up with an email if you don't need to write those down right now if you'd like. But several of those bullet points detail aspects of what we're looking for in a state of maintenance. Basically, what we want to do is when we add a street to the state system is it's not in a state of disrepair, and that this is not going to incur an immediate cost to the department. Basically, we don't want to add a known problem to where it's going to cost the state as a whole money to get it up into an acceptable state of maintenance. So that's the purpose in that. So anyway, so basically it's a 5-step process, but as seemingly simple as a 5-step process can be, it can be, there's lots of little issues in there that can make it a very long, drawn-out process. But basically, it needs to be built and designed to DOT standards. We need to petition. It needs to meet a minimum housing density. We have utility issues, encroachment agreements that need to be obtained. And then when it's found in an acceptable state of maintenance, when those 5 things are taken care of, then it can be added to the state system. So, like I said, hopefully I try to summarize that long. It's like a 3-page, it's about a 3-page list that I had Ms. Marsh including in your package. So I tried to summarize that and make it a little bit more digestible. So again, my intent was just kind of lay a baseline, just to get you kind of started on the understanding of that process. And there's a lot of subdivisions in Wayne County, a lot of subdivisions in this process at all kinds of different states. So are there any questions?
Mr. Mayo.
Yes, if a subdivision is, say, 20 years old, and 20 years ago it was built to DOT standards, when you go out to inspect that subdivision, if someone requests that the DOT take over the roads in that subdivision, do you grandfather those standards back to when it was built, or do you go by today's standards?
Excellent question. I have to answer that in two phases, if I will, not to complicate matters too much. But you mentioned 20 years ago. If I'll just go just outside of that intent, under number 10 in the list that I gave you, it addresses a date of 1975.
I see that.
September 30th of 1975. That is the date that the statute was enacted that basically puts all these requirements and says that any road that is added to the state system has to be up to current NCDOT standards. Okay? So if a road can be proven to exist or was built prior to that date, it can be grandfathered in under basically no standards. Basically, it just had to exist. In fact, I'm currently pursuing one that was, I found a map in the Register of Deeds office that was dated 1925. And so we're pursuing, seeing the possibility of getting that road added, even though it doesn't meet any kind of standard. It's a path, but that's about it. But to get back to your other question, what if it was built after 1975, but may not be up to, say, current standards? Because like I indicated, standards change every year. Right. And so we definitely, typically, when a subdivision is designed, originally it goes through Mr. Price's office, we approve those plans. And so we can approve those plans according to that year's standards. And so we really try to be very reasonable in that. If, say, for some odd reason, for instance, there's lots of ways to complicate matters. Say that road was built, say, in the 1980s or so, and say it was built as a private road. We would not have approved that design in the 1980s when it was built. But now they want to try to add it. We would look at it with those eyes of those standards of the day, so to speak. You know, we would not require brand new aluminum head walls and things of that were never even considered during the construction of that road. So we try to be reasonable in that. So, but most of them that would be like in the 20-year-old range have already been approved. Typically, a lot of the subdivisions in Wayne County that we see, it's not a design acceptance issue because most of the subdivisions were public right away. They were already designed to those standards of the day. And so typically, that first step is not normally what catches a lot of them. What catches a lot of them that are existing today, 20-year-old type subdivisions, is that state of maintenance because it was never added way back, you know, a few years after it was built. It's fallen into somewhat a state of disrepair, and now it's not in an acceptable state of maintenance. And so typically that last one is really what catches a lot. So,
well, as you and I have talked before, one of the issues that I have, and we have it across the county, is that back in the heyday when subdivisions were being approved by this commission board, you know, 3 or 4 months or more, all over the county, some subdivisions, not all, but some subdivisions, and it still is up to the developer to apply to the DOT to take over those streets in a subdivision. Now, the criteria for that is what, Chris, as far as you have to have so many houses built?
Yeah, once it's built and designed to DOT standards, basically, the utilities is kind of a technical issue. It's just a little bit of paperwork, really. But the big things is that it has to meet a minimum housing density. There's a certain number of homes that it needs to serve, or businesses. It can be a commercial development. Right. But basically, it needs to meet a minimum housing density and be in an acceptable state of maintenance. So, you know, the first one means we can't add it initially at the very beginning, but then because of that time gap brings in the second one that catches a lot, because by the time it does, sometimes it falls into a state of disrepair. So.
Right. Well, that's where we're having some issues from way back, you know, 7, 8, 9, is that some of these subdivisions, when you go out to inspect them, it's up to the residents to get it up to code in order for you to consider taking over those streets.
Exactly.
And sometimes, in some cases, it costs almost as much to get it back to your standards for you to take it over as it would for them to go ahead and assess themselves and repave or whatever.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of subdivisions that the residents just cannot afford
Right.
the amount of money that's involved. They can't afford to be assessed 5 or 10,000, just, whatever. We need to address that. And we need to address it in the past, and we also need to have some rules and statutes in place for the future so we can eliminate this 20 years from now, even subdivisions being built today falling into this same thing. So we really need to do some studying here and try to coordinate with contractors and developers and come up with a recommendation in the future that will eliminate this possibility of residents being stuck with the maintenance of the streets. The other question is that a lot of these subdivisions in my district, the residents were not told, and legally they probably didn't have to be told when they purchased their home that they were going to be responsible for the streets in their subdivision.
Right.
So, and now people are coming up and saying, my gracious, it's going to cost us the arm and a leg. We wouldn't have bought here if we'd have known this was going to happen. All kinds of questions. So we're looking at that, and as a matter of fact, I really want to start, and already have started the process to try to get people together, and let's see if we can come up with some kind of ordinance that will help the situation in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Donner.
In my opinion, there lies the flaw. You develop a subdivision and you put in community water, and all of that is done to a standard of the sanitary district. But the moment that is accepted, the moment that is water flows through that line, is immediately turned over to the sanitary district. It's not put there arbitrarily for the resident to maintain that water line until some point in the future.
Right.
It's immediate.
Right.
And the problem here is that people are buying lots in subdivisions, and have for years, assuming it was state maintained, was stated that it was state maintained, it was built to state requirements.
Right.
And because no one took the step of petitioning to have it take over, it's some 30 years down the road. Well, you know and I know that asphalt's going to deteriorate in 30 years.
Right.
So you come along after the petition 30 years later, do an inspection and say, oh, well, that doesn't meet our guidelines.
Right.
So you all, as residents, are going to have to go out here and obtain a contractor to bring it up to our standards. The estimates are gotten, and all of a sudden it's $200,000. And those 20 residents turn around and look at one another and say, well, I have no idea. I can't come up with $10,000. So it's a real problem.
Yes, sir.
And it is not going to be solved, in my opinion, as I stated 6-7 months ago, until we change the formula at the point in which NCDOT accepts the street. And it has to be, in my opinion, accepted on the front end rather than at some arbitrary date down the road. That way it's in the system, and the residents buying in those subdivisions are assured that that street is going to be maintained by DOT. I mean, we've got some real serious problems, not only here in Wayne County, but all around the state. There are a lot of real issues here of access to residences as a result of deteriorating streets. And I think, in my opinion, that we need to look at our legislators to resolve this issue. I don't think it's going to be resolved any other way. So I would encourage this board maybe to reach out to our legislators. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Donnery.
Quick question.
Mr. Payton.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
someone like myself who lives in a cul-de-sac that's paved, it's 15, 20 years, it probably still doesn't meet standards. Do I need to go to the person who developed that and get them to petition now? Because you see where I'm coming from? Because there's probably a lot of them out there like that that hadn't already deteriorated.
Yes, sir. A lot of our subdivisions, when somebody were to call our office, the streets have been petitioned before. At the time of that petition, we would do an investigation, and we would give them a list of, it may only be one item that needed to be addressed. It may just be say a ditch that needed to be cleaned out where a pipe was stopped up. And it could be something, up to a 3 or 4 page letter addressing all kinds of potholes and all kinds of deterioration things. But if those items are not addressed and, we're not made aware of it, to go back and check those things off, so to speak, so that the process can kind of be continued, then basically it's kind of a letter sitting in a file, and those items are not addressed, and just to kind of Mr. Dodd already indicated, the street continues to decay, to deteriorate.
So is it either the
And
developer
so
that calls you or the resident?
a street can be petitioned by either or. It basically just depends on how many people have to sign that petition. If it's the developer itself, whether it's a corporation or individual, the developer can actually petition, and that one person can be the only person that has to sign the petition. If it's the individual homeowners, then we do ask for at least a majority, somewhere in the 75–80% range at least, to sign the petition. The petition is not obligatory in any way. It doesn't obligate the signers of the petition to any monetary expenditures or anything. Basically, it's just petitioning the state to investigate, to try to see if it can add the road to the state system. So once we get that petition, we just issue the letter back and say, well, this, and this needs to be addressed, and we can continue the process. And then it's up to whoever is noted on the petition form as the contact person. It's up to them to either throw their hands up and say this is going to cost too much, or say, hey, we can take care of this next weekend. They take care of it, they call us back, we check it off, and the process continues on. So either or, to answer your question.
I'll call you.
Very good.
Mr. Cromartie.
Thanks, sir. Chris, I have several things were brought to my attention about 2 weeks ago by a concerned citizen. Has a business on 117, the 2-lane. I always kind of get mixed up with what I should call them. It's on the 2-lane, the original 117.
Right.
He gave me a ride. He called me and asked me if I would meet with him, and I said I certainly would. And he gave me a tour through a good part of the Dudley area.
Right.
One site that we visited was a mobile home park, and it had some pretty severe potholes in the street. And I told him my first opportunity I would, bring this to the attention of my colleagues here, but I'm glad to see you this morning. Also, one that has been an item, and I think it's in the extraterritorial district of Mount Olive, because I've talked with, prior to me coming on this board, I've mentioned about to JD. Matter of fact, JD asked me to go look at it, and I did for him. But there's a particular ditch that runs through some folk property, and then there's a contest as to whether or not the blockage, and it's my understanding, if it can be proved that the blockage is under the road, it's the state's, but it's got to be, or maybe if it's back out in the ditch, it might be the municipality's problem. And if it's a certain amount of feet from the ditch, then it becomes the owner's problem.
Okay.
Now, what I noticed over time is that when it rains hard, the water stops somewhere not going through on that road, or it's because, it just floods those folks' yards, backyards, and the field and all that. And I just wish somehow or another that, and I haven't read this entire document, but I was looking at number 15 that might lead us to something. And I thank you for this document, because I'm going to share it with the town of Mount Olive to see if there's some way that we can make sure that we know whose jurisdiction is whose jurisdiction relates to what piece of property. But I just want to thank you this morning for coming, and thank you for this document, because I think once we read it thoroughly, I won't be able to ask you more intelligent questions because I'm going to share it broadly so that those who may have some more specifics than I can put forth questions also. But those, I just wanted to mention those two to you that I might have to give you a follow-up call to iron out some.
Please do. Was there anything particularly you want me to address now?
Well, I just wanted to give you an example of those two.
Okay.
In this subdivision, it's a mobile home park. It's a mobile home, the one where the potholes are, I think, that it was brought to my attention, maybe the worst, was a mobile home park out in Dudley. I won't be any more specific than that because I wouldn't want to highlight whom it may belong to. But it was out in Dudley, and it was some potholes that was out there that was brought to my attention. But the other thing was, and this is just, you know, you don't notice things until someone brings them to your attention. But in the cutting of the grass itself, and we got some good strong grass in the southern part of Wayne County, it's beginning to encroach onto the pavement.
Yes.
And, you know, just in our riding observation, I said, well, when you see the tractors come along, they're doing a pretty neat job of cutting, but they're not edging along the side of the pavement, and I know what that takes. But it is a problem when that grass starts to encroach there. It's just, you know, a lot of people are walking and so forth and so on. So I just wanted this opportunity to bring this as a piece of discussion that citizens are concerned about how the grass is left on the side of the road, if it's not being cut, so there's you know, it's encroaching up on the pavement and then those potholes and those, and exactly who, and I didn't hear all the conversation, I just walked back in, but whose responsibility is it if it's whether it's that mobile home park's owner's responsibility, or at some point it becomes the state?
I believe the same individual that you rode with called me just a day or two later. And so actually I addressed.
Oh, yeah.
And he, just like you, had several issues. And so I addressed all those with him, and so I'd be glad to go into any amount of detail that you would like. But as far as that mobile home park, he actually mentioned, I believe there was two, and I can't remember which was which, but one we did maintain, as we were able to immediately take care of those issues. But the other one I don't think was state maintained. And so it was either private or it may be a public road, but it was not maintained by the state, so we were not able to take care of that. So,
well, and just to put some of a closure on this part, he did let me know that you had responded to him, but I just want to let you know that there was a round robin of conversation.
Right.
So he therefore have pointed out all the things that he's seen over time.
Right.
He's a lifelong resident of that area, so
Yes,
he's
sir.
seen those things over time.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cromartie.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one closing comment.
Mr. Pate?
I'm a retired state employee, and very seldom ever got any thanks for a job well done. The DOT does good work. They redesigned the intersection in Sawston community, and they did a great job. And I'm just, for the folks in Sawston, I want to publicly thank the DOT for doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Any other comments? Mr. Pendergrass?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just in lieu of,
Mr. Cromartie?
I'm sorry, just in lieu of giving compliments, because we can't give them a big check, take home and buy goods. The transportation department redesigned the entrance into Mount Olive out there by Kitty College. Everybody didn't think it was the greatest idea in the world in the beginning. There were some differences. But I stand to tell you, I feel safer when I make that move across there, and the fact that it prevents folk from, too many people from coming into that intersection, it has made it safer. In my opinion, it has made it safer. So the state of North Carolina Department of Transportation needs to be congratulated for stepping forward and doing that, and probably not satisfying everybody, because you can't do that. But I think the greater good for the greater group was satisfied in that instance, I believe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cromartie. I just have one, any other comments? Okay, to finish up this part, then I just got quick comments on Mr. Daugherty and Mr. Cromartie. Mr. Cromartie, first of all, thank you for representing our board on the planning board. this board has seen that you stay on that board to take care of issues just like this in the planning process. The planning department has been in the budget indicated, as you all know, for comprehensive land use plan this year, an updated one. And with that, looking at subdivisions, looking at the roads and identifying the subdivisions with these issues is one of the goals of that comprehensive land use plan. And as you all know as commissioners, we've had as far as grass, just not encroaching on the road, but also grass on unoccupied and unsold properties within the subdivision that have not been sold. So we have a percentage of subdivisions that have large percentages of vacancy. And then, of course, you have that grass issue and who's in charge of that. So there's a lot of things, Mr. Daugherty, that, as you know, on the comprehensive land use plan under identifying these subdivisions, that those that have met the criteria that Mr. Pendergraft has spoken about and those which have not. And, of course, Mr. Cromartie, it's something that certainly you can bring up at the planning board meeting and to discuss with the planning director if you see fit. And also, one other item is that the county association, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, has made it its goal since '08 is not to have the county to take over secondary roads. So that would cost the county millions and millions and millions of taxpayers' dollars if we were told by DOT and by the General Assembly, of course, to take over the secondary roads in our county. So as we do talk to our representatives, make sure that the push is not so far as where they will make a decision on a state level to make the counties take over secondary roads. So I think that has to be also understood going in as we talk to our General Assembly. And we respect the goals of the association, not wanting that expense on our taxpayers. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Pendergraft. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brother.
At this time, it's about 12 after 10, and we have the public comment section at 10 o'clock. So we will move from the general business under new business. We'll move now to stop that and have our public comments. Each citizen has 4 minutes to come up and present your comment. Let us know your name, your address, your phone number. Thank you.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Lynn Williams, 406 West College Street, Mount Olive, North Carolina. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't come and say thank you. It has been a long and interesting road to get to this point today. So we are very excited to see this project move forward. We're excited to be a part of helping see this to final completion. And we have great things. I think when we talk about Steele Memorial Library, Dr. Steele, we're named for Dr. Steele. He had a vision for a library, a public library in Mount Olive, and it turned out to be the first public library in Wayne County back in the 1930s. He died before it was completed, so it was named in honor of him after that. We talk about your comment this morning about the unemployment rate at 9.2%. You know, this library is an economic engine in a variety of ways. One for downtown Mount Olive, and I'm part of the Downtown Master Study Committee with the town of Mount Olive and the college and local business folks who are looking at downtown in a strategic long-term way. And this library certainly plays in a huge part of that and a step forward for what we can do in downtown. But it's also an economic engine in a different way in terms of how we encourage literacy and how we provide spacing for programming in Mount Olive for people who need some boning up on their computer skills and for job searches. Libraries are a huge source of information and resources for folks who are looking for jobs, and even for engaging children and young readers for a lifetime of learning and of reading. So it's a huge step forward for us and for all of Southern Wayne County, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any others?
Tom Drew. My mobile citizenship address of Wayne County is P.O. Box 587, Goldsboro 27533, and my global address is the cardpost@hotmail.com. Communication and Human Relations, it said, has been said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So hopefully that advances to the singing wheel, sounds to please. I realize I may not be singing to the choir, but hopefully you hear a good note or two here. Also said freedom of the press is for those who own the press. The Card Post has, from its conception, sought to return the press back to the people. I wished initially for the teens of Wayne County to own and operate it, to enable the citizens of Wayne County to be the most informed voters on earth. Did appeal to the teens. It's one thing to turn 18 and be legally able to vote. It's another thing to be informed. They had the most to gain. Did seek the assistance of the News Argus in researching their history over the years. I'd suggest, as there's a great success story of Harley-Davidson owners, employees incorporating and buying that company back, bringing it back from Japan, making it a success story in America. I'd say the readers of the News Argus ought to elect someone to go down to South Carolina. There's a lady down there who owns 51% of the News Argus. Find out what she would take for it while she can still get something for it. As I addressed last comment, News Argus fretting about this board not benefiting from the vetting process, I call electoral due process, and addressed concern that they're part of the vetting, that they were dysfunctional. Reverend Barber's up in Raleigh, concerned about what that vetting or lack of vetting produced. I believe it's in 07 report 578, I did research of the NAACP's vetting involvement, forms that they provide that were dysfunctional matters inclusive to the contesting election that year. I did seek the local NAACP, the state and the federal NAACP organizations' second opinions on that, and no reply. And I say, Reverend Barber, I welcome at any time and place a mutual convenience, healthy discussion about these matters. North Carolina General Statute 132, public records, secures that freedom of the press, the ability to secure information, free flow of information. News Argus talking about all these candidates, always listen to their names and addresses and phone numbers, being accessible. In North Carolina General Statute 132, one can file a motion compelling disclosure when communications are not secure. A request for information, and may need to leave here today and go to the clerk court's office and update on the cost of filing a motion, secure documents from Representative John R. Bell IV. Last communication to the county manager, it's called Peephole Bev's Transparency Open Discussion, replaced by Pinhole Pats. Openness in government. 30 seconds left. I suggest all citizens of Wayne County, as well as this board, as the Board of Education, as all educators, write an essay of why world peace is or is not possible. In regards to the beginning of this year, Newtown and all that was my suggestion then, but nobody's done so. And as the next election begins with the last day of the last one, same thing with school boards, school's already begun, and this board can lead the way with their essays.
Thank you, Mr. Drew.
Is world peace possible? If so, why? If not, why? By the address I gave.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Any others?
Linda Harper, 210 Bayleaf Drive, Goldsboro, BC.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. First, I want to thank all of you for all the work you've done since you've been elected. And I want to respond this morning, some of my thoughts regarding the News Argus articles that we've been reading. And I want to say that for hundreds of years, too few people have spoken out against government mismanaging taxpayers' money. I believe the nation is on the brink of bankruptcy, which means all these federal grants and loans we keep being told that we may get will not be available much longer. Just last year, the U.S. spent around $220 billion in net interest on its debt, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Erskine Bowles said that we'll be spending over $1 trillion a year on interest by 2020. And that's $1 trillion we don't have to help states and counties educate our kids or replace our badly worn out infrastructure, which we've been talking about. Now, I admire you for working on this morning, and I appreciate the things you've said this morning to help with this. But the nation did not get $17 trillion in debt on a national level by a few national bureaucrats. U.S. will have more money for debt payments or pay off their debt if each county becomes solvent so they can operate with fewer, smaller, or no federal loans or grants. Counties operate without federal grants by managing their money appropriately while providing jobs and lowering taxes so taxpayers are not burdened with taxes which reduce their ability to pay for goods and services. And that the problem with the roads is a very good example. We need to adjust our perspective and stay focused on the economy like I think you're doing today. We must do like every other business we read about. We must be responsible for the money that we manage. That includes you and me. Thank you.
Ms. Harper?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I need to speak and be brief because I have a doctor's appointment in 15 minutes and I have to get out of here. I just wanted to just express my opinion.
Your address?
I'm sorry. Will Brandison, some people know me as Andy, 270 Airport Road, Pikeville, North Carolina, 736-3711. I just want to make a couple of comments. There's been a lot of comments about the county manager, firing him, getting rid of him, whatever you want to talk about. I'm well aware that the county board of commissioners hires and fires the county manager, and I totally respect that. I wanted to speak in behalf of Mr. Lee Smith. I've served with him as a team for I don't know how many years, Mr. Parker. Can you remember how it's been? It's been many years. And I really respect the man. He does a fantastic job. He's got a fantastic memory. He's got records. You go into his office and ask him for anything that's 20 years old or 10 years old, he can pull it out immediately. He's well organized. I've seen work with him in many of the businesses we've gotten here in the county, many of the good things that have happened. He's had a part in them. I'll give you just a couple of examples. With AR came here, he did a lot of research on that, and he helped to push that and get that company here. And on the airport, he's gotten many millions of dollars in that airport to get it fixed up to where one of the finest airports east of the Mississippi for a small, non-commercial airport. And this is just two quick examples. He does what you ask him to do. And that's what your job is, to just ask him to give you information, and it's his job to get it, and you do what you please with it. I'd like to comment one other thing along that same line is, if we don't keep our businesses here, we're going downhill and become a third world nation, or county in this case. And I think he is one of the smartest men I know and can do a good job for you. Just use him properly, and I think you'll get a good job from him. Along that line, I want to comment, because it's still the same comments. You are a board of 7 commissioners, and in my looking at and reading the paper and watching TV, I like to see you remember that you were all elected by the voters, and you all need to take part in things. I know I served under a Democrat board of commissioners, but we got things done. We worked as a team. The 7 of us worked together. I didn't always get what I wanted, but we got the job done. And so I would recommend that you all, that you work together as a team and for the betterment of this county. None of you are an island to yourself, so just keep that in the back of your mind. I know I rambled a little bit, but I just want to kind of express my opinions on that. We appreciate what you're doing. I'm not here to complain. I'm just saying, don't forget, you're a team of 7. Please act like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any others?
Steve L. Herring, 349 Weaver Road, Goldsboro, NC, area code 919-689-2669. Keep it up with the papers and different things that's been said in the last few months about Busco Beach. You can be in Newton Grove, you see load after load of four-wheelers going there. You can be in Wilson, you can see load after load of four-wheelers going to Busco Beach. It's a fine recreation facility. So what if it's in a flood plain? Flood waters go down in a few weeks. They can ride again. They enjoy riding in the mud. Some of them just dive right in one mud hole after another. They're having a good time. And they're spending taxpayers' money to buy that gas and them tires and them parts for them four-wheelers right here in Wayne County. And I would appreciate it if the city council and the county commissioners would bend over backwards to see if you could sell this floodplain land to them, or search the statutes, the state statutes and the federal statutes, to see if you could keep this facility viable for not only people in this state, people in other states coming here to ride four-wheelers. They're having a good time. While everybody else is crying in their soup, they're spending money. And they're spending it in Wayne County. I see them at gas stations and everywhere else buying parts and stuff. There's no reason that I know of under the sun that we couldn't have soccer fields, baseball fields, and a fine facilities in that part of the county for recreational purposes. Got some prime land out there to fix for ball fields and things like that. In fact, I sponsored a ball team there one time. They had a ballpark, and so I would ask that the county commissioners and the city council see what they can do and research the statutes and see if they can make arrangements to get the proper ordinance and proper zoning and everything, and keep this tax flow coming into Wayne County, and increase it with soccer fields and ball fields and tennis courts and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. Anyone else? If there's no one else, then I will go ahead and declare this public comment section over with. The budget amendments, I'm going to hold off on that a moment. I'm sorry? The budget amendments, I'm going to hold off on that. That is amendments within the county and the commissioners, but there are those here that have come to be a part of presentations. They've taken off of work. They're here, and I want to move the budget amendments away from number 2 and move it down. So pardon me, Mrs. Holt, but let me, there's some here that need to go back, so I'd like to move back to 3, or over to 3, in the request of the name walking park at the Wayne County Senior Center. And then we have some others that people are here. We'll just go ahead and get this up out of the way.
Morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Mr. Ball, thank you.
If you are familiar with the campus that the Senior Center is on, to the right of the Veterans Building is a small grassy area. And we are developing that into a park for the seniors and benefiting from it. And I would like to invite Mr. Keith Gunnett and Mr. James Hare from Wells Fargo Advisors. This is, Keith Gunnett is the Managing Director of Investments, and James Hare is the Branch Manager. Wells Fargo Advisors were generous enough to donate $10,000 to develop that park. We have a paved walkway that the seniors use all day long. There are picnic tables and a shelter. It's just a beautiful, safe place for the seniors to enjoy the outdoors and to exercise. So I wanted to publicly thank them and also ask your permission to name that park area the Wells Fargo Advisors Walking Park.
Well, that certainly is a nice gesture, and what is the pleasure of the board? She's asking for a recommendation or a motion that we
Motion
do
to
that.
approve.
Mr. Bell, there's a motion on the floor that we name this walking park, again, the
Wells Fargo Advisors Walking Park.
All right, that's a motion, and any discussion? Part of my discussion is a big thank you. Mr. Gunnett, thank you so much. And
We'll photo up.
as far as that is, but we will, yes, well, let's get this vote out of the way, and then we'll come down and join you for a picture. All those, any other discussion?
I wanted to be respectful.
Is there something you'd like to say?
His name is Jimmy Hare. I was trying to be respectful saying James Hare, but it's actually Jimmy.
I didn't want my mother to be upset if she saw this, so.
Don't want her upsetting. Well, there's a motion on the floor that we certainly do this. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all of that, of those opposed, that's unanimous, and so we'll come down and have our picture made with you. How about that?
Thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Just find a hole.
We really do appreciate it. Once the sign is put up, I will call you. Maybe we can do a photo of
Let's see, where are we now? On the number 4? The Honeybee Day and Wayne County Proclamation. Jessica Strickland, is she a special guest here?
Yes.
And Connie Price is.
That's what I've got about, I think I was trying to pull up. Yeah.
That's what I asked him.
They won't be working. We got this get one.
Did it load up?
We can come back to it and move to another one. It gives you time to pull something up. You want to put it off for a few minutes
Yes, sir.
and try to pull that up, and we'll go to the next. Do you
Okay.
mind, Ms. Strickland? We'll come back to you in just a minute. Thank you.
There.
Oh, you got it? Uh-huh. Maybe. Oh, Lord.
Just like me.
It never fails.
Okay, all right.
It was a good
You
try.
thought you were-
He was trying to, but it's all right.
Okay.
We can pull it up here in a little bit.
It sounds like it's not accepting the information, so we'll just go without it. It was just an added thing Connie was trying to do.
Okay, well, do you want to go with that then?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can go ahead with number 4.
All right, if you'll introduce our special guest.
I think we have Jessica Strickland, Park Extension.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm here on behalf of the Beekeepers of the Neuse and would like to invite everyone to the first National Honeybee Day celebration in Wayne County. This celebration will be held on Saturday, August 17th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Old Waynesboro Park in Goldsboro. We want to invite everyone to be amazed by learning about the importance and fun of beekeeping. National Honeybee Day was designated by the United States Department of Agriculture in 2010 to further awareness of the honeybee and its importance to agriculture, the food system, and the economy. There are half as many beekeepers and a third less beehives today as there was just 25 years ago. So we'd like to invite everyone to learn how you can get started in the rewarding and beneficial hobby of beekeeping, or just learn more about the importance of the honeybee. And have the proclamation. Can you read? Okay, so I'll read the proclamation.
Thank you.
Whereas the honeybee is critical to the process of pollination, with 1 bite of food in 3 benefiting directly from honeybee pollination. And whereas honeybees are essential for the production of more than 90 food crops, and bee pollination is responsible for $15 billion in added crop value. And whereas honeybees face a significant threat from colony collapse disorder, which has been linked to disease pathogens, parasites, environmental stress, loss of natural habitats, and inappropriate use of pesticides, herbicides, among other factors. And whereas the honeybee works together with other bees in the bee colony as a single, vibrant, living organism that helps to maintain healthy ecosystem. And whereas the United States Department of Agriculture is working in cooperation with federal agencies, universities, industry, and additional partners to find ways to improve honeybee health and habitat. And whereas the Beekeepers of the Neuse will celebrate National Honeybee Day on Saturday, August 17, 2013, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Waynesboro Park, and invite everyone to join the activities, including an observation hive containing bees, equipment for beekeeping, candle making, honey sales, master gardeners, beekeeping information, and food and ice cream for sale. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wayne County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim Saturday, August 17, 2013 as Honeybee Day in Wayne County, to call awareness of the honeybee and its importance to agriculture, the food system, and the economy. And now therefore be it further resolved that the Wayne County Board of Commissioners does hereby encourage the people of Wayne County to celebrate the honeybee and its many contributions with appropriate observances and activities.
This proclamation's been read this morning. What is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion we accept, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's on the floor that we adopt the resolution. Any discussion?
Just a
Mr.
quick
Pate.
comment. She's pointed out the importance, and I think a lot of people really do not understand the importance of beehives and beekeeping. And I'm glad to see you guys are behind this, and it's something that's growing again in Wayne County.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Any others? Thank you for all your hard work. I've been reading your articles in the paper. Excellent
you.
job.
Thank you.
Any other discussions? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. And if you want me to have some flyers, if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just
Mr.
as
Kumar.
just as a side note to the public, and one of the most important things about honeybees to me is that I just so happen to have the nicest little small jar of honey in my refrigerator, and it goes the best with peanut butter at 10 o'clock at night that I have ever. So just in case some of you don't know what a good sandwich is, just get your little jar of that real honey with that cone in it, and some peanut butter and some milk at 10 o'clock at night, and you're in for a treat.
Yes, sir. As long as it's local honey. Local honey.
I'm sure it is.
There you go.
It's local.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. We are running just a little bit long, about 20 minutes long. Just make sure there's someone here, anyone here that needs to get back to work. Okay, we're okay then. Let's move back then in order to the budget amendments.
Ready for Ms. Holt to come up this time?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
Mr. Smith. I'm sorry, let's just
That's all
move
right.
up to budget amendments
All
and get back in order. Thank
Sure.
you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ms. Holt.
We're going to start with Budget Amendment Number 7. And Budget Amendment Number 7 is for Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority. This is an increase to a salary reimbursement of $51,167 and increasing the associated expenditures, and it's for the Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Operations Manager. This morning, we do have with us the new Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority Director, Ms. Lynn Lambert. If you have a question, she'll be glad to come up, or if you would just like to meet her this morning. Would you stand, Ms. Lambert?
Yes, please.
Please come up.
And we're also having her come next month for her first quarterly full report to the board, so she's getting prepared for that too. So.
Yes. Good morning. It's nice to meet you all.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
This budget amendment is just a reimbursement from Goldsboro Wayne Transportation to the County of Wayne.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fay.
I move that we accept.
Motion's on the floor to accept this number 7, Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority, $51,167. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you.
We do have a large number of budget amendments today. The majority of those are reappropriations from last year of funds that were received and have not been spent yet, or either grants that we are still anticipating on receiving that neither the revenues or the expenditures have been received or spent at this time.
Can we group those, in a
We
way
have,
that the commissioners maybe can pick out those that they want to talk about? Can we just sort of group them?
The majority of them are this way, and if you want me to, I'll just keep going until you want to tell me to stop. Ms. Holt,
Pleasure
Ms.
of the board on that? Consensus, that'll work? Mr.
Yes.
Bell? Okay.
Okay. Number 10 is Wayne Community College. These are funds that you appropriated to Wayne Community College for capital last year that they are requesting that they move forward to this year. These were not spent last year, $482,784.30.
Those are projects that they actually have started but are not finished. So they're in process on those projects that Don Magoon and Kay Albertson had brought to us, so they're in process.
Last year's money.
Yeah.
Mr. Donnery.
And my understanding is we're going forward, and I understand what this is from one year to the next. Does that actually increase our net budget? This actually would be an
Yes,
increase?
anytime you do an amendment that increases your revenue and your expenditures, it's going to increase your total budget.
Okay, so even though there were funds allocated last year and they're carrying over into this year, it actually increases the
Yes.
budget for
It's,
this year?
this is where you get into your amended budget, and you'll see the budget increase over the year.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Donnery.
Number 11 is your Highway 70 corridor. This is the $250,000 grant that we're moving into this year, increasing the grant and increasing the expenditure for the associated grant. Number 18, Board of Elections. This is a HAVA grant that we're moving forward to reappropriate the unexpended HAVA funds, $1,695.09. Number 21 is Controlled Substance increasing $363.49, increasing expenditure $363.49. Number 31 are the Sheriff's Department grants that are restricted, that we're moving forward the balances, for a total of $401,953.55. Number 52 is seized property, $2,852.48. That's to record the receipt. Number 32 is SCAP funds, $13,845.41, also restricted grant funds.
Excuse me, what is, Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Donner.
What does SCAP stand for?
State Criminal Alien Assistance Program.
Thank you.
Federal payments to localities that incurred correctional officer salary cost for incarcerating undocumented criminal aliens. Number 48 is to reappropriate 1213 construction funds for jail renovations, $22,820. Number 22 is to anticipate the North Carolina Department Electronics Building Program for the landfill, $27,100. We had previously presented a budget amendment that used all fund balance. We actually have some of the grant funds that we can use, so we're increasing the grant and decreasing the fund balance appropriation, $27,100.
This comes out of the enterprise.
Enterprise
Yeah.
fund. Yes, sir. All restricted money.
Yes, ma'am.
Solid waste, number 28, is appropriating $38,082. That is materials recycling coordinator. That is not a grant money, or this is new money for the year.
Mr. Donner.
Is this a new position created?
This, we did, okay, would you like to come up, Mr. Rogers? We do have Tim Rogers here.
We'd ask Tim to be here because this is part of the discussion we had with you, that as we move into the new year, use these grant funds that we'd be moving into electronic recycling, and this is part of that process. So.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is to fund a new position, and this is has to do with the new electronics program that we've had to start. As we've talked about before, I mean, prior to June, we did not handle any electronics. We provided a area at the site for the company to set their container, and they accepted electronics, picked them up. We didn't have to handle them or do anything other than that. Only involvement we had was the site attendants, instructed them on how to place them in the container, but that was it. In June, the company informed us that they would no longer be able to pick our electronics up. And after checking around with some more counties and other companies, you're just not going to find anybody to do that anymore. The only option we have is to start handling electronics ourselves, and that means picking them up, bringing them back to a facility, palletizing them, separating them. When we get a load of them together, they will come and pick them up free of charge. As far as the transportation cost, they do cover that, and they will cover all the consumables, the shrink wrap and all of that such thing. But as far as the labor in the facilities, we have to cover that. As we've got in this process, we started out not really knowing how much we were getting, because if we went by what they had told us, we were collecting around 100,000 pounds a year. We found out since then, since we've started collecting it, it's going to be upwards around 300,000 to 400,000 pounds a year. So we started off with maybe we could get by with doing things a little differently, but as we've got involved in it, we're not going to be able to. And this position's kind of got to do with that. We initially thought we maybe could use a part-time person and maybe utilize some folks we had, move them around a little bit, and it's just too much, and we're not going to be able to do that. And that's the reason I talked with Mr. Smith and decided that we were going to have a person to man that, to be able to do it. And that's kind of where we're at on that. We've got the money now for for the building and the piece of equipment and stuff we'll need, we're just going to need a person to be able to do that. Because I feel like it's going to be a full-time job to be able to keep up with it.
Any questions? Mr. Doddard?
I remember the amendment in regards to building the structure. And then you were saying there's additional equipment. Have you got an idea in regards to what the overall cost of this is going to be to the county in regards to now switching over to where we're handling all of the electronic recycling?
Well, I believe it was, I can't remember the exact amount. I think the building was $76,000 for the building, that's concrete building, and then there was another $42,000 for containers. There was $20,000 for a tow motor to move the pallets around, and then, of course, that's your capital up front. The cost to run it per year will be $38,082, the cost of the employee. Like I said, they will cover all the consumables. We don't have to buy anything as far as what we use to package it, but we are going to have some labor costs, involved, which is what this is covering.
Are we going to get any reimbursement from anyone?
Yes, we should get, and it depends from year to year, it should be $7,000 to $10,000 per year from the state.
The other thing is, if you recall, we actually raised our tipping fee this year. The predominant reason, with the exception of a few pennies on that increase, was to pay for this program, which is a mandated state program. And that's why we raised it, was to take care of this cost. And this will fully take care of it. We went up $1.50 a ton, and that was to help take care of this.
How many metric tons did you say this equated to? You said that 100,000.
There'll be 300,000 to 400,000 pounds per year is what we're projecting
We were
right
looking at
now.
100, but it's much more than we anticipated.
Help me that with metric tons, because we were
Metric
discussing
tons, what would
400
it be?
metric tons in the landfill. Is that annual conversation yesterday? 150 metric tons, then we went
Oh,
400
yes,
metric
I
tons.
see what you're saying. Yeah, we do,
So is this
per
included in
day,
that?
we do
Right.
what, between 300 and 400?
That's right,
tons a
around
day?
400 tons a day.
Yeah.
A day?
A day.
Okay. So this equates to how many metric tons? Help me.
In metric tons? Ooh, I'd have to do that division.
We talked
Now you're
metric
switching
tons
to
in
the
the
metric
solid waste
system
business,
already.
making
Yeah.
thousands of pounds.
Well, we're dealing in, the way we're dealing with this is thousands. We have to, 25,000 pounds per load, and that's kind of what how I'm figuring it,
What's a ton?
So that'd be 12 tons, around 12 tons a load, so,
All right.
yeah. Be a
My-
couple
my
hundred
question is-
thousand pounds, a couple hundred tons a year.
Okay. My question is when the grants run out, then is that how we're going to offset with increased tipping fees?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So we will watch that in the future
Yes.
as we do budgets. Okay. Now, my second question, I guess, is this is appropriated fund balance, so this comes out of the enterprise
That's correct.
fund balance. What is the balance of that, Ms. Holt, in the enterprise, in that system? Do you know? I would like, we're going to get some other issues here, and I just need, if you would, to shoot an email over to
We can do
finance
that.
to see if we can get the balance.
Absolutely.
Of the fund balance, restricted and unrestricted in that fund balance.
It would all be.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Next, since you're there, you might as well go on to the next page. Number 50. Ms. Holden.
I'm sorry.
Okay, this is your equipment rental at 15,802.
The next two really are connected.
Yes, sir.
Those are your two.
You want to talk about that process, Tim?
Yeah. The next two are connected, as Mr. Smith said. The $15,802 is to cover rental for a piece of equipment. We need to have this piece of equipment to haul dirt from our borrow pit to the working face to keep us in compliance with the state. Between us having a machine down and the weather, which does hinder us somewhat when it comes to moving the dirt, because it's been pretty wet lately, as y'all know. But But, so we really need this piece of equipment to try to get caught back up between the weather and and we had one piece of equipment down. We need this piece to get caught back up, and that's the reason we're asking for this.
And that's for the 5 to 6 weeks while we're doing on the next amendment of
That's
the
right.
rebuild versus purchasing a new machine of which is no longer being made. So we're looking to do a rebuild on this Caterpillar piece of machinery at what, about 50% of
Yes,
the
sir.
original cost?
It's about 60, I think, is what we figured, but
That's the number 51.
that's right. This is a piece of equipment, it's a '04 model. They're actually not producing this type of piece of equipment any longer. The nice thing about this piece of equipment is you take one operator, one piece of equipment, and you're doing the same thing that it would take 3 operators and 3 pieces of equipment to do if we went another route. It loads itself, it hauls it, and it unloads it. There's not another piece of equipment that does that.
This
So
is one they
if,
informally call a pan.
that's right. It's called it's called a pan or a scraper. Some people call them scrapers. It'll haul 15 yards of dirt per trip. And it's something vital to the operation of the landfill because the state mandates you have to cover every day. So it's a pretty harsh environment these pieces of equipment are running in. And like I said, if we didn't have a pan or a scraper type piece of equipment, we would need to get an off-road truck, an excavator to load it with. It dumps the dirt. We need a dozer now to spread it out over the trash. So this machine can actually do all 3 of those functions. So it's a lot more cost effective to run it, obviously. Like I said, they're not making them anymore. I would like us to get a certified rebuild done on this one. When we get it back, it'll have a new serial number, new machine warranty. It'll be just like a new machine at about 60% of the cost.
How many years?
Excuse
How many
me?
years?
We're getting about 8 to 10 years out of them
This
on a rebuild?
one's 9 years old,
Mhm.
this machine. It's
So
an
what's
04
the
model.
expectancy once we get it rebuilt in years?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. That would be good for, I feel like we could get 10 more years out of it.
We brought Mr. Acock out 2 weeks ago, and I actually went through this process with him. In order to buy these other 2 pieces of machinery, that was $843,000 to buy the 2 pieces of machinery if we had to go with new versus rebuild, plus an additional operator or 2 additional operators, which was $90,000. So we had a $90,000 on an annual basis, plus the equipment purchase that they took a look at. This rebuild at $243 being the 60% cost savings plus keeping our labor down. And I know the attorney said it makes no sense that they have stopped producing these machines. You can't buy these from anyone anymore. They don't make them. It makes sense to me if I'm the company's building because they sell more machines at a higher price. That's why they've done it. And but the rebuilds get us by for a long time and save us a lot of money. So.
Yeah, we've done 3 of these rebuilds and we've saved about $1 million doing them. We've been very satisfied with them. When you get them back, I mean, if you did not know it was a rebuild, you wouldn't know it. It's
brand new.
I mean, it's every bolt, every line, you know.
And they're warranted brand new.
Exactly.
When you get
And they look at it as a new machine.
All right.
It's warranted.
Mr. Donner?
I assume that you had anticipated this rebuild.
Yes, sir.
You know, that it was going to take place, because it was running at the end of its life.
Yes, sir.
Life cycle. I suppose my only concern here is that here, 1 month into the new budget, you know, I just feel like we should have approved this in the budget that we just implemented. But it's my understanding we actually took that out. But now, 1 month later, we're putting it back in. So I would only hope that, you know, that we cover that during the budget process rather than a budget amendment.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
And I think the reason for that is down now. We wanted to get it done, kind of be proactive, and obviously we were going to try to run it a little more, but it's actually down now. We're going to spend 30 to 40 on it to kind of get it back up and running. I feel like we'd be better off being it's at the end of its life to go ahead and let's do the certified rebuild, versus, every month it being something. And us needing it the way we do. I mean, because it really gets us behind if we don't have both of them running.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Doddard.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cromartie.
I'd just like to take this opportunity, since we're dealing with the budget, the previous requests and so forth. With our different departments, they're so big, they're so complicated, they do so many different functions. I would just sort of like to maybe say out loud to all of us that what was not approved in the previous budget negotiations and what some may have been encouraged to reduce can only come back to look at us as it becomes a needy. So I sort of fully expected to see you and other departments come back to look for things that we actually need to make stuff work. You can't make an operation work without equipment. I have used my trailer to bring stuff back in there to the landfill. It's rough. When you said it's a harsh environment, he's being polite. It is a harsh environment, and it takes strong, tough equipment to make that process work once you leave the paved road and go back into the landfill.
Yes, sir.
So it's not easy, and number one, I congratulate you all on doing the rebuild. When you talk about how well it's done, all you got to do is think about the kind of antique cars that our friends can rebuild out in the public, and they make them better than what they came from Detroit. So the rebuild process, whether it's machinery or buildings, when it's done right, is not a bad way to go. So that's just two things I wanted to bring up. We will have to face budget amendments to reclaim the opportunity to go forward during this budget year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cromartie. Any other discussions on solid waste? I want to chime in real quickly. Pardon me, just standing here and sit down. But it's addressed to the commissioners. Thank you. My comment to that, Mr. Cromartie, and I do have a comment on that, is that this department is a different department. It's an enterprise department. It makes its own money and survives within itself. And I agree with Mr. Daugherty is that when it was exposed to us in the budget and we look at cutting taxes and cutting expenditures, we cut $1,860,000 somewhere in that neighborhood in expenses. But this is a different department. This, being an enterprise, that's why I asked for the fund balance. And Mrs. Holt said, these are restricted. So if they're all restricted, then let's look at the enterprises as we create these entities, these departments to do and make money, and we can still lower that tax rate and still watch the expenditures. So just to chime in on Mr. Daugherty is that it does come to, not a surprise, but it comes as right after the budget. And if we anticipate over the next 11 months or 10 months at looking at these high dollar changes, we have to understand where they come from, which department they come from. And of course, the grants have a big part of that, and I think that was brought up here a little bit ago. But that's just my comments. Any other comments on solid waste? Thank you. Have you got anything else that you'd like to share for solid waste?
No, sir.
Mrs. Holt? Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you.
Number 25 is sewer. We are increasing non-capital furniture and equipment by $3,318. This is to appropriate funds for the purchase of a 12 by 16 storage unit for the sewer fund, which is also an enterprise fund. Number 29 is to reappropriate the North Carolina Rural Center SECU grant fund, and these funds require some appropriated fund balance because we have received some money, and then we're still receiving $1,250 for the Rural Center.
And the funds are safe. Just to let you know.
Funds are safe?
They're safe. They say, we're good. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments on that?
No.
Any other comments on that? I do, when you mention funds were safe, I think it's a good time to go ahead and bring up and I know we're pressed on time trying to get it all done by 12. with the North Carolina Rural Economic Development Center. And I want to take this moment to tell the people that the News Argus yesterday's paper did an excellent job of covering the big picture. And I want to appreciate that. But the North Carolina Rural Economic Development Center is going through a change. And my concern is how much longer can we anticipate what we have planned on continuing to come to Wayne County in the process that we've made, whether it be sanitary districts, or whether it be sewer, or whether it be water, whether it be expansions. And, you know, where are we? I know that the article was really good in explaining from the Fremont part, from the Fremont manager. And we have some issues here. So this is just $1,250, but we have issues with tens of thousands of dollars that has been hinged on this system called the North Carolina Rural Economic Development Center that is being somewhat now in limbo. So as we as commissioners, particularly myself, that every time I see that NC Rural Center, I'm going to question. Is it here? Will it come next week? Is it going to come 3 months from now? So I guess that's my comments from that, Mr. Smith.
We've sent a formal question of the Rural Center and to that board asking those details about monies for Wayne County, just all inclusive. How would they, how will they impact it? What are they exactly? Because there were some dollars we still couldn't track what they're for. We do understand there could be dollars that are left over. In other words, if you had $1 million grant, you spent $990,000, there was $10,000 left, there could be a layover there that's still there for the county but may not be receivable. So that's part of what we're trying to ascertain. So I've actually sent them a letter and asked that formal question.
Okay, good.
No.
Thank you. Any other comments on that?
Okay, number 53 is Public Affairs, is decreasing professional services by $7,780 and increasing salaries and fringes to appropriate funds for temporary part-time position in Public Affairs. And I do have Barbara Arntz here if you have any questions on that.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daugherty?
In this budget amendment here, you are shifting from professional services over to this part-time position. So that was already covered in the budget, basically.
It is covered
Correct.
in her department, but I think this is probably the first budget amendment that we have presented to you. It is the over $5,000 amount that is still within, this one is not increasing your total budget. It's moving funds, but it is over the $5,000 limit that we have authority to sign within the manager and departments.
So at this point, this was the first budget amendment that did not increase the budget?
Well, no, this is the first one that met the
transfer.
$5,000.
$5,000 and above.
Yeah, the new budget amendment policy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. Any other comments on that?
The next one is animal control, is to reappropriate donations received last year that were restricted for spay and neuter services, $7,780. We had a couple of big donations. Number 33, to reappropriate funds remaining in 1213 for the Vision 100 grant for the airport fuel farm, $1,817. Number 56, 911. Due to a lightning strike, the Grantham Tower site required repairs covered by insurance. This is to reappropriate insurance proceeds received in prior year to pay for expenses incurred within the 13-14 fiscal year, $3,163.50. Now, we have the next probably 5 or 6 are services on aging. I do have Ms. Erin McCullough here if you have questions. These are grants. The first one is increasing client transportation, $3,759. The grant is $3,383 with a $376 county match. The next probably 5 are decreasing our grants. Her grants were reduced due to sequestration. So we're reducing the grant and the related expenditure. Decreasing client transportation, ECC general transportation, $8,015. Number 36 is decreasing direct transportation, $1,556. Number 37, due to sequestration also, is reducing consumer-directed care, $2,214. Number 38, reducing in-home aid, $15,000 due to sequestration. Now we're back to our increases, thank goodness.
My goodness, she's really gotten hit by.
She got hit.
Some cuts, didn't she?
She also will actually decrease, we talked there, and services will actually decrease because of this. So she cuts back, you have fewer hours in-home, fewer transportation, so she actually cuts the service.
Okay.
So we do not pick that up.
That was my question.
Yes, I thought that might.
The Eastern Carolina Council of Governments, the COG that we were a part of this morning, Erin and her staff rely so much on the Eastern Carolina Council because 87% of their total dollars, federal funds that come for the area on aging, 87%. The rest is made up through RPO or through technical assistance grants. But when the sequestration started up, they anticipated these, and Tanya Cedars has done a great job as the Director for Area on Aging for ECC to indicate to Ms. Erin McAuliffe here that these were going to take place. So it's not something that's just all of a sudden like this week. It has been anticipated, and they have been watching this since the sequestration began its work here 3 months ago, 4 months ago, or whatever.
We don't
This
present.
is just that we're starting to see.
That's correct. You're just starting to trickle down now, but we knew they were coming.
And the Finance Office does not present the budget amendments till we have final documentation on the grants. Okay, number 47 is SHIP Fund Senior Health Insurance Information Program. That is increasing the grant $3,157. And then Progress Energy Fan monies. We received this money last year. We need to spend it this year. It would be restricted for fans, $657. And then you have one that is the walk-on that was mentioned earlier. That is increasing the health promotion grant, $7,749 with a county match of $861. And that gets us through services on aging. We'll move on to Kevin Johnson, Cooperative Extension Director. He is increasing the revenue for the Parents as Teachers grant, $53.33. He is increasing his minority health grant, $21,794. We are increasing the CDBG scattered site 2011 grant, $388,240. Revenue and expenditures.
What's the scatter site? I look down with that.
Scatter Site is a project that actually is county-wide. So we actually can have agreements. Sometimes we actually have projects that are inside a municipality with the exception of Goldsboro, because Goldsboro is HUD. But we can with Mount Olive, Fremont, we've had homes in those. So Scatter can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a block or a project area. It can be anywhere. So literally, it means scatter.
These are the grants that David Harris comes and talks about to y'all about.
RSM Harris handles that, manages it for us.
And CDBG stands for?
Community Development Block Grant.
Thank you.
We've got another one, number 43, Catalyst Grant, $520,271.12. These were approved last year. We're moving them forward into this year.
These are very specific grants for housing projects in areas.
Number 44.
I got a question on the fund balance appropriated of $29,000.
Since no funds were, you would have appropriated the fund balance last year also, but this grant has not, we have not received or spent money on it, so we're having to completely redo the budget amendment for this year. And so that is appropriating the same amount you appropriated last year.
Bringing it over.
Let's, can we just take a moment? These are high dollar grants. They are development block grants. And I guess just to make it clear and to make sure we all understand that this was last year, but they've been shifted to this year. And Mr. Harris has put this together as we hire him to do so. And he's been doing it for probably 20 years here, I guess.
Number 12, 15 years at
15
least.
years.
Yeah.
And he uses, I guess, the direction of how do we determine what the block grants go for?
Well, first of all, block grants have specific purposes. If, for instance, in a scatter grant, they're income-based housing improvements. We, in the past, have done owner improvement, in other words, single owner, not rental properties. You can do that, but we've chosen not to do rental property. So, an income-based, we choose to do those that are owned by the person, and it's based on income. But we actually, all through the year, DSS, our office, and we get calls all the time, we refer them to Mr. Harris and his staff to actually go out and they do an evaluation. They'll go out and actually do a 2 or 3 page evaluation. They look at their income, look at the housing situation, and then they keep a running tally of worst conditions and poverty level. That way when we come up, we have priorities. And he also maps it with GIS to say, do I have, so when the last one came up on Love Drive, we were able to, boom, we jumped right on it because we knew we needed water, we needed septic tanks, we needed a road, we had it. It was kind of shovel ready, we already had it. And he helps us do that on all the projects. But he brings those into the board and will give you like 5, 10, 20 projects. We do relocations, which would mean instead of redoing rehabilitation, someone actually maybe moved out, the house or home destroyed, and a mobile unit brought in, or a modular home. And those happen, so sometimes it's cheaper. Yeah, we have hearings, we do all that. People have the right to come in, and then we actually submit what the projects are, and it's made very public as to who is being served.
And with that said, we have $388,000 for the block grant, then we have $491,000. So these are block grants, these are monies that come in. But then when we have to appropriate our fund balance to make it work, is that correct, of $29,000?
Yeah, you actually have to. Those are actually required. Now, what we've tried to do in the past is, for instance, with the Mills construction project in the Marmac area, we actually earn dollars on that because that turned into be a loan for us. We try to use some of those proceeds to help offset these matches over years. We try to look at that. What did we get over the years in that? And that's how we committed to community assistance, North Carolina Housing Finance, to say we would get these dollars as a loan back, but we're going to use those dollars over years, over time, to help do some of these matches that might be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And obviously, they're thinning out. You're seeing fewer and fewer of these. But there are matches required, but I try to use those proceeds as I can from like Mills Construction, paying back. Yeah, you did get a report each month, Marcia was saying. And love to bring David in here maybe sometime, just give you a little update this fall on how the projects are going. We got something coming up. Yeah, so he'll be coming up. We might want in a work session just kind of go over those, because you've done a lot of projects in the last 12 years and had a lot of impact. The scatter grant and the block grant.
Sure.
Be glad
and
to
of
bring
course, he uses local professionals here locally.
Yes, he bids it out. Everything's bid out.
For construction and engineering.
Yeah, in fact, when you go into our office, Cindy's office, that file cabinet you see right there is just CDBG. That's stuff where people can come in and look at all of our paperwork, the bidding, who's getting what, from the what type septic tank it was to who did the work. It's all there, and it's all for public examination, and it's a very public process. So, but David and his staff handle that.
All right.
And there's an audit done on it several times a year. They're coming in for audit on the work papers that we have.
CDBG and community assistant monitoring visits. We get those at least once a quarter.
All right. Okay, any other comments, Mr. Donner? I thought you were okay.
Number 44, this is reappropriating the Verizon grant for the library, $2,560.63. Number 45 is reappropriating the Walmart Community Grant, $500 for the library. Number 46, is to anticipate reimbursement from Literacy Connections for a part-time employee. That's where they have their part-time employee on our payroll, and they reimburse us for the entire amount. Number 24 is the Juvenile Crime Prevention Grant. It is increasing the grant by $194,523 and the related programs that it sponsors as expenditures.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Goddard.
You state there to anticipate grant funds. Have the grant funds already been allocated?
Yes.
All right.
They are approved, the grant funds are approved. They actually come in monthly. They come in before we distribute them. They just kind of they just come into the county and we send them out to the programs.
Okay, so you don't bring a budget amendment till you actually know that, in fact, those dollars have been awarded?
No budget amendments are brought to y'all until the grant is fully approved.
Okay, thank you.
And that
Mr.
gets us
Chairman,
to-
I move adoption of the listed, all of the budget amendments that we've just gone through.
Very good. Motion's on the floor that we adopt the amendments that has been presented by the finance director. So, any comments, discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Go away. We're in the discussion period on the amendments. Okay. Mr. Beck, do you have any discussion on the amendments? Great. Motion's on the floor that we approve the amendments as presented. Not any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.